I have always been honest in my relationships with women. The last affair unexpectedly ended for my fiancé, friends, and relatives. My ex-girlfriend was meticulous, reserved, serious, and responsible. Initially, I admired these qualities, but over time, the strict schedule of our lives became tedious. There were no spontaneous meetings, purchases, or behaviors. Even future weddings and the birth of a child were meticulously planned years in advance. As the schedule became increasingly rigid, I found it difficult to tolerate, and after an honest conversation, I decided to move out. At first, adjusting to my new life in a rented apartment as a bachelor was uncomfortable. However, after a couple of months, I got settled and became acquainted with my neighbors. There was one particular neighbor who caught my attention. A stunning blonde beauty from the outermost entrance. She always had a smile on her face, and her inquisitive gaze and animated gestures during conversations were captivating. I often saw her with a man, a rugged individual in an expensive car. Their relationship was filled with stormy scenes of jealousy that were witnessed by the entire street. After a particularly intense argument, the beautiful neighbor seemed downcast, and her lover vanished for almost a month. Seeing such a gorgeous face looking unhappy was unusual. One evening, we happened to bump into each other at a nearby store. She was at the cash register, organizing her groceries into bags. The bags were quite heavy, so I swiftly took them from her delicate hands. "Let me help you," I smiled and winked. "The bags are heavy and we're heading in the same direction." "Thank you." The young lady responded shyly. "Do you live next door?" "Yes," I nodded. I decided to do all my shopping at once so I wouldn't have to leave the house, but I underestimated my strength, she explained with embarrassment. "No worries, the weather is nice. We can take a walk," I suggested. The girl remained silent, responding only with a heavy sigh. Breaking the silence, I introduced myself, saying, "My name is Sergey." She responded with her name, Anya, as our neighbor. "Sergey, please understand, I'm not always this unsociable," she confessed, her voice tinged with bitterness. "I'm just going through a difficult period. I recently went through a painful breakup after my boyfriend cheated on me." I offered some cliched words of comfort, saying, "What a fool to have let such an amazing person like you slip away. Time will heal your wounds." But beyond those common phrases, I struggled to find a way to truly uplift her. Anya rarely spoke to anyone else, so I walked her to the door and exchanged phone numbers. A few days later, she called, and we went for a walk, engaging in conversation. She seemed much more animated, and on our next meeting, I encountered a vibrant, cheerful woman. There was no trace of the heartache she had previously carried. I invited her to my place, and she agreed without hesitation. We spent the night together. We continued to meet, both of us comfortable with a commitment-free relationship. Sometimes she would disappear for a week, only to call me in the middle of the night. Spontaneous dates became more frequent, and our weekends were often spent together. We never delved into discussions about our emotions or made future plans. Then, when she announced her pregnancy, I was stunned and elated simultaneously. When I asked her to be my wife, she enthusiastically said yes. However, her pregnancy took a toll, leaving Anya nervous and irritable. She cried frequently and had to be hospitalized. I remained on constant watch beneath her window, pestering the doctors with my calls and questions. When my beloved was finally discharged, I heaved a sigh of relief. But as fate would have it, my boss decided to send me on a business trip to a nearby city. The extra income was appealing, especially with the upcoming wedding and baby on the way. Anya assured me she was feeling better, but my departure was heavy-hearted. My intuition didn't fail me. A few days later, I tried to reach her incessantly. Finally, an unfamiliar voice answered the phone. "Anya has lost the baby." I can barely recall how I raced back to our hometown. I headed straight to the hospital, where they allowed me in. I embraced the inconsolable girl, tears silently streaming down both our faces. In the corridor, I encountered the doctor, who wearily passed me by, casting an indifferent glance my way. "Pyotr Alexeyevich," I rushed to him, nearly grasping his chest. "How can this be? You assured us everything would be fine." "Yes, I did. the doctor affirmed. I also advised caution and to abstain from sexual activity during the threat of miscarriage. Well, couldn't you have been more patient? I reproached him, feeling stunned. The doctor's words refused to sink in. I drove home, attempting to calm my racing thoughts. They couldn't have made such a mistake. That's just how doctors cover up their own errors, I concluded, and lay in bed, grappling with sleeplessness. My restless mind compelled me to pace around my apartment until I cursed my skepticism and grabbed my keys, heading to my beloved's residence. What I encountered filled me with fury. Evidence of a tumultuous night, remnants of flowers, and an empty ashtray-laden bottle littered the room. I even thought I could discern a strange man's scent in the air. It took considerable effort to control my anger. I resisted the immediate urge to confront the unfaithful woman and put an end to our relationship. A few days later, she was discharged from a hospital, and I went to pick her up. As we drove into her driveway, I retrieved my bag and proceeded towards her front door. "Honey, I feel so unwell. I think I'll stay with you," she whimpered, her face turning pale. Without saying a word, I quickened my pace, and she followed suit. At her doorstep, the girl seemed to regain her composure. "I can't find my keys. Can we go to your place?" she inquired. "I have keys," I replied, producing a caring and unlocking the door. We entered her apartment, and her expression changed as she realized I had been there before. Pretense seemed futile. "I'm sorry. I don't know how this happened," she whispered, her tears flowing. She confessed that her ex had been stalking her for some time, incessantly calling and pleading for her to return, admitting his mistakes and proposing marriage. Throughout this period, she had been torn between returning to him or staying with me and having our baby. When I left, he arrived. My emotions welled up. "I understand. It resolved itself," I said, walking away. You know, that betrayal was deeply painful for me. I had already envisioned myself as a loving husband and a caring father, but fate had a different plan. I went to work, and eventually my dream began to take shape. I purchased an apartment and started the renovation process. I seldom encountered Anya. She had reconciled with her ex, and together they resumed causing disturbances throughout the neighborhood. Then one day, he disappeared, and Anya started to hover around me, at the entrance and even at the store. She made awkward attempts at humor and engaged in aimless chatter. On one occasion, she gathered the courage to call me and inquired if I was open to her visiting. After a firm refusal, these chance encounters ceased. The last time I caught sight of my ex was when I was loading my belongings into the car. Her gaze bore into my back, and she appeared forlorn and resentful. I was eagerly anticipating changes and a new chapter in my life, while she seemed to be left alone with her memories and quite possibly her regrets.